it's being live streamed.
Okay.
Yep, just
Great.
to let you know. So it's being live streamed. It's being live
So
streamed.
no swearing.
So, well, you can swear. You can swear.
Yeah. Cool.
Hello.
So we have to be quite close to them.
Oh, okay. Hello.
But hello, everyone.
You have to be quite
Testing.
close to hear them.
1, 2, 1, 2.
Like that? Is that good? Okay, cool.
Okay.
Hello. Yes.
Hello again, everyone. Hi, Julie.
Hello.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for being here. I am so honoured to be sitting next to these two fabulous women and two fabulous winners of the Australian Photography Awards 2024. Yeah. So I've had to jump in a little bit at the last minute. So might have eased up on the cocktails last night if I'd known I was talking. So bear with me a little bit, everyone. But I'm so happy to be here and just listen to these two great ladies speak about their practices. So I'm just going to get stuck straight in. And if anyone has any questions or comments they want to talk or bring up at any point, I think it's fine to just talk, have that conversation going as we
Yell
speak.
at us.
Yell at us, holler. So Madeline, I think I'll start with you, and let's just start with the images that you guys have submitted and that you won with. So you entered one image this year into ABA, and boy did it hit the top. So I know that this project has multiple images in it.
Yeah.
So how do you pick the one image out of all of those images?
Yeah, okay. I'll give some context as to where the wider work. So it's kind of like one work, but with about 20 images. And it was, what I did was I asked 10 people who were strangers to each other. The work is called 10 Strangers, but who I knew. And I got them all together, and I got them to kind of squish together in a really tight formation. And I photographed them over and over again over a period of maybe an hour, would you say? Victoria was in it. 2 hours. Oh, and it was really, really hot. It was like 40 degrees in a not air-conditioned room.
Nice.
We had a lot of fans. I bought a lot of ice drinks. So it was like basically a sort of fast-tracked intimacy accelerator. And the final work is you can see snippets of the scene, but you can't see the whole scene. It's all shot in kind of close details of this collection of people that don't know each other, really pressed to get together. And so I hadn't shown that image outside of that installation, which was shown at MAF, the gallery, and it was all on one wall. So this is the first time that I've sort of separated it out of that context. So it's it's nice to see that it still resonates on its own as an image. I think that one stood out because some of the images, which there's a lot of images rolling up, but you'll probably see some which are like limbs or bodies kind of pressed. And, for a portrait prize, the face images are going to probably stand out a little more on their own. The limb images work better in context, so that's kind of why I chose that. That picture. I thought it still had a bit of resonance on its own.
I have so many follow-up questions, but I'd like to just bring Hilary into the conversation first.
I wanted to ask a question.
Oh, yeah, please do.
What's the idea behind the work?
The idea behind it. Okay, so I guess the previous work that I had done was a project where I'd asked people to recommend me to someone that I didn't know. This was after lockdown, and I was sort of thinking a lot about my community and how just seeing your immediate friends isn't quite enough to feel like you have a support network. You sort of need those friends of friends and secondary contacts to feel like you're properly in the fabric of a community. And so I started, it was just selfish doing this project. I just wanted to meet new people. So I just asked people to refer me on to people, and then I would photograph them the first time I met them. and so that project kind of got me thinking a lot about the trust aspect of being photographed. The whole project really hung on this, structure of that they trusted the friend that had referred me, and I trusted the friend, and because being photographed is quite a vulnerable space. So I think through that project, this idea came about that relationship between the photographer and the sitter, but also between the sitters as well, what that meant, and getting these people into one room and getting them to all get to know each other in this kind of unique way. Like photography, as we know, it's a bit of a passport into spaces that you wouldn't normally access, which I think is a great responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think about that a lot. So that's kind of where this project came from, off the back of that project. Really thinking about relationships and vulnerability and trust, I think.
Cool.
I guess that kind of those threads are in a lot of your work, Hilary, and we'll talk about Cactus Car soon, but just following on with this conversation, you work with a lot of different people in a lot of different areas, commercial, you have an art practice as well, and I guess how important is that, building that trust when you're working with people?
Well, this weekend actually is the AGM for Heartfelt, and it's on at the moment, right now.
Oh, wow.
And
There's a lot
so I'm a
happening this
heartfelt
weekend.
photographer. Yeah, a lot of stuff on. So having a level of trust in that space is, for those of you who don't know Heartfelt, it's an organisation of professional photographers who photograph stillborn babies and the terminally ill children. And so I've been doing it since 2011, and it's a real privilege to be in that space. But you go into that space sort of, yes, with a level of trust because you are a professional photographer, but then and treating the portrait session like a normal sort of family portrait, because that's what it is, but with a great deal of sensitivity, of course. But and it's one of the most favourite things that I do. People find, we try to get more members, so anyone who's thinking about doing heartfelt photography, I'm very happy to talk to you about it. It can be confronting, but it's a really beautiful thing to do, and it takes you out of your own life because you're helping others. So yes, so if you want to do it, it's really it's a great thing to do for people.
Absolutely.
But so apart from that, that's then I've got my other stuff that I do. The other photography, commercial photography, event and portraits, and then my practice, which I've been concentrating on quite considerably the last 2 years.
Yeah, 10 years, you say?
2 years.
Oh, 2 years, sorry. Because I was going to say, I think, I've known your work over the years, and I've got to know you better and better over the years as well, and I'm not sure if it's a bit of hand in hand of getting to know you better, but I feel like your work is really evolving in the last few years, and your personal practice is really just, you surprise us every year with the work that you submit.
Thank you.
And this year, obviously, you have 2 finalist images in 2 different categories. And, even when you won the environment category with Cactus Car, and we talk about trust with people, and we were talking about trust with animals earlier today. And, there's even a trust with the environment that you work in as well. And, spreading the right message, I guess, and also being safe in the environment that you're photographing. And that's a real focus. Environment's a real focus for you in your practice, isn't it?
Definitely. So I've got a little announcement.
Ooh.
So over the period of 2020 to 2022, I did something called the #EverydayClimateCrisis visual petition. So it was a call out to women and non-binary people around Australia to submit images of their area and their home that sort of speak to climate change and the climate crisis that we're currently living through. And anyway, I raised about 1,247 images, and it was a petition. I printed each image out and we put it into Parliament, and it was tabled in Parliament as a petition, which was amazing because there's so many rules about petitions in government. So anyway, so we did that, and that happened in 2022, July 2022. And then about 4 months ago, I got a call from the Australian Embassy in Berlin, and it opens in Berlin on the 28th of November. It runs for 6 months, and it's also, I'm yet to confirm, but basically going to be in Athens, Cyprus, Malta, Bosnia, one other place, I can't remember, somewhere in Europe. So I'm going to go over for International Women's Day for an event that I can't go over for the opening because I'm working. And so I shouldn't say that, it's been televised, isn't it? But anyway, so it's very exciting. And I sent a little secret message out to all the women involved and saying, can't say anything just yet, but this is what's going to happen. And I asked the embassy whether or not I can mention it today, and they said yes. So I'm very pleased. I'm so proud for all the women.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
And so I guess the work that you've been making in the environment sort of in the last few years, was it inspired by that project and the women that submitted to it?
No, I've always been interested in... My landscape photography is always something... it's a connection between humanity and the landscape, so how humanity and the environment interact. And I love irony and contradiction, so a lot of my images, if you look deeper, they do actually have a bit of irony and contradiction in there. So I love showing... the landscape that's been touched by humanity. So it might not be pretty, but it's important. So that's why the cactus car is one of those things. And cactus car is an image that I took in Greece, and it doesn't exist anymore because they actually cleaned up the whole island after that and got rid of all the dead cars and motorbikes that were lying around everywhere. And I just fascinated by the fact that this cactus had taken over the car. It was inside the car everywhere.
Yeah.
And so I was
Life
very
taking
happy
back.
it did well.
Yes. And I guess something that we really love in the work that we do is words that accompany imagery. And I think both of you write extremely well about your work. And often towards the end of often throughout the whole process of judging, but especially towards the end of the judging process, the words actually really affect the results. I wonder if you would like to, maybe Madeline, we can start with you, but if you'd both like to talk to sort of how words and that relationship between words and photos influence your practice.
Yeah, it's kind of complicated being in a visual medium and figuring out how to combine your writing practice. Like I did a research master's, so I had to write quite a lot about my work, and I sort of found that trying to keep them together all the time is really hard, and putting time into the writing development of my ideas and then putting development into the actual practice of taking the photographs, they sort of move each other along in these waves because they're different languages, quite literally. And so I sort of think about writing as its own practice in a sense. And its purpose really to me is, it helps me try to figure out what I'm doing. But I also really want my writing to be accessible. I really don't enjoy the kind of art writing that's very difficult for the average person to understand or get into. The point of the writing for me is to kind of help somebody get into the swimming pool that I'm swimming in with those ideas.
Yeah.
And I understand a lot of artists find it really difficult to say this is exactly. A lot of people that don't make work are like, what does it mean? Tell me what it means. I want the answers. And it's really hard to say that. And I empathise with that. But I think the goal shouldn't be so much to say explicitly, here's what I'm doing, more just to say, here's an entryway into my thoughts and my ideas, because people don't have that context, especially when they're looking at one image or just one work. They haven't seen your work before. Just saying, look, this is the surrounding social situation that I was in. My personal situation has led to this work. Just helps people connect with it more. So that's kind of how I think about writing. As a help people into the room.
Yeah, and it comes across like that as well, I think. Especially the text that accompanies your image here today.
Yeah, I try to write in pretty clear language.
Yeah.
And just, not mess around with confusing people.
But it's, and it's something I've struggled with. I pretty much failed English at school, and my mother was an English teacher, so she's horrified. But I've always loved poetry, and I love how getting emotion in thing. And I have a friend who did a PhD, and I cannot read his PhD. It's a visual arts PhD. It's just so technical and so art speak and what have you. And so I had advice that just write how you write, like your poetry and stuff like that. So with Cactus Car, it was the body of work was called Monochopsis, and I'll just read out this thing if that's all right.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So Monochopsis is a word that was in a dictionary called the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows by Joan Koenig. And basically, the body of work, Monochopsis, sort of related to this statement, which was the subtle but persistent feeling of feeling out of place, as maladapted to your surroundings as a seal on a beach, lumbering, clumsy, easily distracted, huddled in the company of other misfits, unable to recognise the ambient roar of your intended habitat in which you'll be fluidly, brilliantly, effortlessly at home. And then I sort of started thinking, I need to put some other words to that. And so I just sort of thought about the time that I was actually photographing Cactus Car and all the other stuff that I photographed. And so I went into a very personal space to actually document, to write the artist statement. And I showed it to a couple of curators, and they went, wow, that's just... And I thought, oh, okay, I'm on the right track here. I don't actually have to speak in art speak. I don't have to do that. I just actually write like me and not put any commas and full steps and full stops and stuff in there.
Yeah.
And so I think it worked.
That's so interesting. You both kind of said similar, things. And I think that's so important to write from, yourself and not try and project. It's like photography itself. We don't want to be trying to emulate and copy other photographers. We don't want to be writing like other people. It needs to come from within, right?
Yeah.
So I guess I'd love to talk to you guys a little bit about where do your ideas generate from? So I mean, Maddie, you touched on this with the initial project, the lockdown project.
Yeah.
And so that obviously came out of lockdown. Do you find that you have a really kind of, are you bombarded with ideas and you kind of don't know where to start, and you don't know which one to pick first, or is it something that comes, are you researching and finding that inspiration a lot slower?
I usually mull for ages, and then it's sort of like the itch turns into something that you have to scratch eventually.
Because your work's so specific. The two projects in particular that I know you for, they're so considered. Everything is so
I usually spend
particular.
ages thinking about, I work completely inconsistently. I'll shoot nothing for 3 months, and then I'll shoot like a maniac for 3 months. Because I'm just like, I guess it's sort of like what I said with the writing practice and the and the making practice. It's sort of almost a different headspace that you need to be in to be shooting one particular work all the time for me. So I kind of mull for a long time on things that are going on. It's really, my work's very personal experience, and things that I'm struggling with or that I'm trying to figure out. Because I've been shooting since I was quite young. I started in high school, and I've been a photographer all my professional life. So photography is just that's how I figure things out, I suppose. And so I'm usually trying to think about something, don't know how to tackle it, might think about something else. Sometimes with works, I'll make one work and then that will maybe scratch the itch of that idea, but it'll bring up something else, like with this work. And so then I'll follow that kind of train. I think a lot of the works are very woven into each other, but I do spend a long time before I start shooting thinking about how the making of the image might help progress my ideas. What can come out of the act of photographing, because they're also very process based. So searching for those kind of answers in the acts of taking the photos and making the work.
Has your process always been this sort of considered and deliberate? Before you did the lockdown coming out of lockdown project, were they also very considered projects?
Yeah, I think so. I think that it's more just how my brain works. But in saying that, it's not. It's not considered in the sense that I know how it's gonna go. It's like I think for ages, and then I'm like, this might help. This might be the answer. Yeah. And then, of course, like with photography, because you're dealing with real people, and I'm always shooting real people in their real environments, there's like a bit of an element of staging and a bit of an element of real life that clash together to make the image, which is the best part. That's the magic of shooting, especially with people, because you can't control everything. So it doesn't matter how much you pre-plan, that's always going to take over. So, yeah, I mean, I always say, like, I think about my work as a question, not an answer. Like, I don't know what's going to come out, but I think about specific ideas a lot, and then I hope that the act of taking the photos helps synthesize some ideas. Sometimes it just makes more questions.
Yeah, yes, it does.
Mainly, yeah.
I think with me, I'm fascinated how ideas progress, and some ideas will pop up, and I'll go, oh, I better write that down. So I've got a visual diary beside my bed, and so I'll write that down, and then a few months later I'll write another thing down, and I'll go, actually they're actually connected, and that happened just recently because I'm fascinated by how humanity and the environment interact and how disconnected we are from the environment, and how when you watch Instagram you see things like raccoons in people's homes in their beds, and you go, what the fuck is going on here? Seriously. And so I just, anyway, so I decided that, and like we have so I'm an empty nester. My son is here in Melbourne doing uni, and so I've been able to work a lot, to do lots of stuff, which has been fantastic.
You're so prolific. That. It's just you seem like everywhere.
Yeah,
all
I don't
the
have to cook tea anymore. I can just concentrate on doing what I want.
Yeah,
and which is fantastic. Thanks, Henry. But but on the other hand, being a single parent for the last 20 years is lonely at times, and so I was thinking, okay, rightio. So, and I see the disconnect between us and our environment, and I took a photo in France last year, and it was a hedge that was perfectly round like this against a brick wall, and I was thinking, we're so controlled, and with how we landscape our gardens and stuff like that, and yet I'm looking out the window, but there's a garden out there, but I'm inside, and I'm thinking, I need to be in nature. I need to resolve this loneliness and stuff and what have you. So I started this project where I'm photographing myself looking like I'm in a relationship at home. So I've done in-camera double exposures, and once when one person washing the dishes and one person having a cup of tea, having a chat, and pretending that I'm in a relationship. And then I sort of thought, well, actually this relates to the environment. So I've got all these photos that I've collected over the years of these lovely hedges that are so controlled, and gardens and stuff like that. And I was thinking, there's a disconnect between those two bodies of work, but then they're actually connected by the same theme. So I did that. I did the double exposure things in like about 2 days, and I was like, oh my God, I've got to do this straight away. And then I sort of think, no, bodies of work, they're meant to last for years, and you're meant to be tortured and whatever. And I was thinking, no, I did it in 2 days, and I'm pretty happy with that. So, yeah, so it's interesting how you become inspired by things. So, I love it.
I love that we all have such different processes, and the fact that, you can do a project in 2 days, and that's absolutely valid, or you can take much longer to kind of think it through and consider it, I guess.
With the Palestinian stuff that I've been doing since November last year, that has been something that I've been adding to as the grotesque actions are happening, but then I had to stop after a while because I was becoming obsessed with this terrible thing, and it wasn't really doing me any good.
Yeah.
So I actually had to stop, even though it's even getting worse. And I actually had to physically stop.
Do you want to touch on that work a little bit?
Yeah. So the one that's in the experimental is I made a stencil out of black card and pierced with a pimple popper 2,000 holes in a piece of A4 card, or 8 by 10 inch card, and then someone had given me all this unexposed black and white paper, and I thought, I'm going to do some lumen prints. So I made a stencil, and I made 12 stencils, 12 lumen prints, representing on the 3rd of January last year the 24,000 people officially killed in Gaza. And so I've still got all the lumen prints. I haven't fixed them. They're in a dark box. And I was shortlisted for the Belfast Photo Festival with that work, including the digitised version as well as the unprocessed lumen prints. And I wanted to have them together because over a period of a month that the exhibition would be on, the lumen prints unfixed would just deteriorate and what have you. So that's what I did. But I absolutely love the digitised version, and it's been quite successful as well. So it's in the Mullins and what have you. So and actually Andrew Quilty wants to do a print swap with me, so that's good.
Amazing.
He told me that today. So and it's so beautifully printed. There's a fellow who works at the Portrait Gallery, does lovely prints, Mark Mole, and he printed it for me. So it's beautiful. So yeah.
And so I guess I find it really interesting because I'm a mother as well, and so I just want to touch on this a little bit because you said, once your son left home, you suddenly this creativity is really come back. And was it always there? Do you think or was it? And you just couldn't act on it as much, or did you find the time because you seem to be creating so much? I asked this because I struggle to create.
It's not long. How old are they?
They're nearly 11. I struggle to find the time, and because I'm immersed in photography so much that when I do get that moment, I find it very hard to be passionate about my own photography. So I'm wondering if you had a similar
It's a revelation. I feel liberated. I love my dear darling son as much as whatever, but I'm so glad he's in Melbourne and so glad that he's at university. And so for the last 18 months, I have, apart from this job that I've picked up, which I'm quitting anyway. But I have been creating so much because I've got the time and I've got the energy, and I actually have the funds now. Like when you're a single parent, you're completely consumed. I've only got one child, but and I was the main caregiver. So yes, I did other stuff when I could. When he got a little bit older, when he was sort of about 16 onwards. So yes. There is hope, Harry.
I'll pick up a camera again one day.
And it's so wonderful to do it. And just, having the time and headspace.
And Maddie, do you find that you have to sort of plan your creativity a little bit? Do you find that it wanes and goes in kind of ebbs and flows, and you have to kind of curtail it and kind of I think this is really interesting because I think there's so many people out there listening or seeing all this work on the walls, and they go, I wish I could be that prolific, or I wish I could just pick up a camera and be that creative. But we work at it, right?
Yeah, it is for me massive dips and troughs in how much I work, because I think when you're working really intensely, it takes so much effort and so much energy. And if you've got, I need to have the ideas at the front of my brain so I can pick them up when I go to a shoot and they're there. They're close. The wires are close to each other. I don't know whether that's scientific observation, but I feel like I need to rev myself up to be in an intense shooting mode. And I can't be like that all the time. And so then I drop it off completely and I focus on my normal life and my job and my friends and whatever. And then I'll ramp back up and be in a manic shooting phase. So I definitely work like that.
Yeah.
That's the only way to do it. I can't work consistently. But, there's long-term consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When
just,
you
it's almost,
use the wide angle lens.
yeah,
so-
yeah, it's almost, I mean, I guess like everybody would in their lives, like you need to take rest periods and holidays from your practice as well as the peak periods of your practice.
And you do have to step out of your own life, I think, at times,
Yeah.
just to...
Look back in and make sure
Yeah.
it's what you want.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Well, to make a work, it's a priorities thing because you do kind of sacrifice other things when you're in that kind of intense period of making work, I think. So it just depends what your priorities are at the time.
And are you working in photography as well? You're shooting commercially?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been I've been a professional photographer since I've finished uni. So kind of a mix of freelancing and contract jobs, and it's
Yeah.
I mean it's piecing it together
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of have always had a bit of a mental separation of my professional paid practice and my art practice, just because I didn't want anyone telling me. I didn't want any pressure on the work that I make. I just want to make it for me
Yeah.
and hope that other people like it. But I didn't want it to need to be sold. So
And do you have tools in place to kind of separate that? I try because I do lots of different things and I try and compartmentalize.
yeah, I do.
And for some of the year that works, and this point in the year it is all over the place.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of make sure that they don't
Cross into each other.
yeah, cross into each other, or that you can make sure that you still, if you're shooting something that might not be your passion to put food in the fridge, how
Yeah.
do you kind of make sure that when you pick up your camera again to shoot your project that you're loving it?
Yeah, I guess I don't force making work for me. I wait until I need to make the work.
Yeah.
I wait until
Yeah.
I'm like, I have to make that work.
Yeah.
I don't try to, not that I'm recommending this, like I think a lot of people would benefit from being like, I'll set aside time. I don't do that. I just wait until the ideas have bubbled up and I've got to get it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the paid work, I'm there because I'm being paid.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I enjoy it, but it's
Yeah.
sort of there's a pretty clear separation in my mind, really. Not to say that I don't put creativity and energy into the paid work, but it's like it's a total separation of feeling like it's my work that I'm responsible for, and so
Do you think that you get work from your arts practice?
I don't know. I guess maybe. I don't. I usually get work through word of mouth. People don't usually cold contact me via my website or my Instagram, but I don't put any of my commercial work online.
No, that's
Um,
interesting.
So
Yeah,
it's usually
yeah.
just word of mouth. People have worked with me, and then they recommend me to someone else, and then yeah.
Yeah,
So
'cause-
you
not
find
really,
that?
because I sort of I have intentionally tried to publicly put my name beside my art practice, not beside my commercial practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good, because I've only ever had a website when I've started the business in the late 90s, where it was all about my commercial work and
Yeah.
and whatever. But now I've swapped it. When I had COVID 2 weeks ago, I separated everything. So I've got my commercial work on my website, but then I've got all my exhibition work on and a different part. And I'm so glad that I've actually finally done that. It's something that I've wanted to do for ages.
Yeah.
Does then that make it sort of clearer in your head and like in your practice and in your creativity to kind of have that sort of separation?
Well, for
visually
me,
like that?
I'm 61. I'm closer to retirement than you are. And so I'm sort of thinking that I'd rather concentrate on my arts practice. So I need it to be more prevalent on my website. So, but I still need the dollars to pay for the rates and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So and I'm still working. So, but I want to show people that I'm doing both things.
Two sides,
But
yeah.
I like the fact that you've done something quite different. You've got your arts practice on your online presence, which is
I could probably financially benefit from promoting my commercial practice a bit more. I'm just lazy.
It's such a hard balance.
it is.
So I'd like to just touch on a little bit. Like both of you are, you know, your work is out there in the art space, in festivals, in award programs. I just wanted to, I guess, touch on a little bit, like how what's that kind of process like? Is that something that, like Maddie, I know that with the previous project, it was in photo festival. It was, you know, it was in the Photo Book Awards. You know, you're sort of around quite in a few different places.
Yeah.
Is that kind of, have you been working at that, or is that something that's just kind of happened? Do you just enter one image and win?
I was lucky this time. People ask me this question a lot. Like young artists ask me a lot how you start showing your work. At the beginning, I mean, this is what I did. At the beginning, you have to do a lot more, unless you're really lucky, a lot more things that you pay for. You apply for galleries, you pay to hire spaces to get your work out there. And slowly it's been becoming more that people will ask me to be part of things, or that I'll get the kind of shows where they give you funding. But it's a really slow process, and it's not like now I'm like, everyone's paying me. Like I'm like, okay, where am I showing next? What's happening next? It's a bit of a it's a rocky journey in the arts in Australia because we just don't have enough funding. But
do you have one moment where you were like, oh my God, they've asked me this. This is
well, the photo festival was the first time I was commissioned to make a work. So that felt like a really big moment. And now you know, I'm saying to myself, I'm not going to pay to hire any spaces anymore. I'm only applying for things that pay. Okay. But, you know, don't hold me to that if I don't get any shows this year.
You got to have goals.
Because it's so expensive and it's hard to maintain it. But it does take ages to build that up. Yeah. And, you know, those opportunities come because you show in other places like the photo commission came because they happened to see my work at Bus Projects, which was a show the year before. So you have to just, when you're younger, start getting your stuff out there in any way that you can, and then hopefully people start to like it. But it's definitely not a linear process. It's not like, you know, you have a couple shows and everyone's knocking down your doors.
I think with stuff like Photo Collective and Head On and all the arts prizes, I think these days are much more willing to accept photography from what I've seen just in the last couple of years. But it's a numbers game. I reckon you just have to... so I got a rejection this morning. I wanted a grant to make a book for the climate petition. So I got a rejection this morning, and I looked at it and I thought, okay, fair enough. Whereas I think in the past I would have just gone, oh my God, I would have been mortified for 2 weeks.
You have to deal with so much rejection. That's what people are like, oh, you look like you're doing great, you're in these awards. And it's like there's so many rejections.
Yes, it's horrible. And not to take it personally, and to rationalise it and thinking whatever. So, But my main aim for my arts practice, just letting you know, so I want to have an exhibition in Melbourne, and I've looked at the galleries are really expensive here, and but I also want to have. I've had quite a few solo exhibitions, but I haven't had a group show. I haven't been part of a group show. I'd love to be, apart from Photo Collective or the Baroness or what have you. But I really love to be part of a group show,
like a collaborative kind of work that you're doing.
An old boyfriend of mine and I are going to have one, but I had a shocking week, so I forgot to put the application in for the gallery. So I'll do that soon at some stage. So there'll be 2 of us. But I'd like to do a group show.
Maybe I'll just see if anyone. I mean, I could keep asking loads of questions, but I might throw it out. Ash, your hand is straight up. Do you have a question?
I think it it's a lifelong journey. Imposter syndrome. I feel like when I started getting into more, professional spaces and being a bit like other people are here just because they're also working at it. They didn't wake up with the knowledge or the skills. Like everybody's just doing the steps to make the image look good or to apply for the grants or whatever. I think with rejection, the main thing that I try to think about is like, especially with applying for galleries, the curators have their idea of what they need the year to look like. And so it's not as simple as your work is the best or less, because they're trying to fit you into a big structure of diverse works and, their specific goals. And so it's obviously always hard to get a rejection, but it's like there's so many factors beyond whether your work is good or not, because you have to fit into their program. So that's a good thing to remember. And yeah, when you're early, like when you're starting out, just apply for too many things and try to be in groups. Being in group shows is a good way as well. Like if you join with a couple of friends or something and apply for that, it's a good way to get stuff on your CV and get experience and get people seeing your work. But yeah, it's definitely not always about you or your work when you don't get into something, I think.
And, talking about imposter, so when I first started photography, almost 30 years ago, I was a radiographer before that for 20 years, and calling myself a photographer, I went, oh my God, I'm a photographer. Now, the other day, someone called me an artist, and I went, oh my God, seriously, me, an artist? How weird is that? So, you just got to get used to it. Just keep saying it. I'm an artist. I am an artist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I reckon I was like freelancing full time for about 7 years before I got out of the mentality of like, I'm just piecing it together and waiting to get a job. I was like, oh, this works. Like this. It's also because, like my family had very traditional, like they were a teacher and a nurse, same job for their whole lives.
Yeah.
And so they're very like, oh, do you have work? Like, is it the house at all? And it's kind of like you have to finally reach a point where it's like, no, this is how I will work forever. Yeah. This is what freelancing is.
Yeah.
So there's such a level of instability in freelancing that makes you feel like you haven't made it as a photographer because you're constantly doing new, like piecing together projects. Like I'm still doing that. I'm still doing a short contract at the moment that will end in January. So I'll find the new piece, and like I've been doing this for 10 years. So that's just. Yeah, you got to kind of get comfortable with that. Is the way that it works. Yeah.
Yeah, I have imposter syndrome every time I sit at a microphone.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Well, I have one final question because we are kind of coming up to the hour almost. So what's next? Do you have any ideas for future projects? Do you have any ideas? Hilary, you sort of touched on a little bit of, what's happening with the everyday climate crisis. Do you have other project ideas? Is there something else exciting to talk about?
Yeah, so I have been approved for an exhibition at Anchor Galleries in Canberra in August next year. And it was with a body of work that I did where I photographed a piece of white paper on top of a piece of white background paper. And it was a mental health thing more than anything. I had been on antidepressants and I'd been going off my antidepressants, but having really bad withdrawals and things. And then doing the Palestine Gaza stuff at the same time. And I was thinking, oh my God. Anyway, but so basically I've called this that's right. I saw something on Instagram. Guy said, if you can't stop your mind from going, he said, you just ask yourself one question: what will your next thought be? And I went, shit, I can't think of anything. And I went, that's really cool. I like that.
That is a good trick.
Yeah. So I decided to do a meditative thing where I photograph a piece of white paper on a white background, and then print it, which technically is actually really hard to do to get all the, because white is not necessarily white, and then fold it, photograph it again, fold it, photograph it, and see how far I can fold it and photograph it at the same time. Then I did it again, but ripping the paper this time. And so I've been accepted for an exhibition for that. But then the gallery curator came back and said, we really love that Palestine Gaza stuff you're doing. Is there a way we can combine the two? And I was thinking, well, it doesn't actually work, but it's both a meditation, the meditation of death, the image that's in the finalists here, and my meditation to help me get over the death and destruction and my mental health issues that I was having at the time. So it sort of does work. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. So that's what I'm doing.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm making you work, trying to figure out where to show it. So if anyone wants to give me a show. This work is... This work's probably going to be a bit different, I think, to the last few series. I had this sort of medical journey last year, and it made me think about my relationship to my body. So this work is much more about the body. And I was like, oh, maybe it'd be interesting to do some nudes as part of this. And in an effort to kind of be sensitive about shooting people, I put a call out on my Instagram saying, if anybody wants to model nude, I don't want to approach people. I just want people to come to me who would be happy to do that. And, I got quite a few responses, which was great. But now everybody is like, how's the nude project going? Like, what's happening with the nudes? I'm like, no, it's about the body generally. It's not just about nudes. and there's been a few people that I wanted to photograph, like, clothed, and they're like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. I'll get nude for you. And I'm like, no, you can be clothed. It's okay. So now it's got this nude surrounding it. So I'm trying to figure out whether I lean into that and just fully do just nudes, what it means, because people are kind of so scared and excited at the thought of, modeling nudes sometimes. So I could go that way, or I could go the original way I was planning with
maybe the
body.
project's taking you in a different direction.
So I did shoot quite a bit of it at the start, and then now I'm back in a mulling phase of like, which path am I going with this?
Yeah.
TBC. You can see if it's a nudes project or a bodies generally project. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, everything sounds so exciting, and I just absolutely can't wait to see what you guys do next. You're both absolute powerhouses, and we love seeing what you do. So keep doing it.
Thanks.
And I guess that's kind of it, guys. So this is the last talk for APA 2024. Thank you both so much for being here and being a part of it. Thank you all for being here. Thank everyone who's talked today. Jake's still there. It's just been absolutely amazing. It's been quite the year for us at Photo Collective. There's been... I'm freestyling, Tom. It's been a roller coaster, and we don't know what our plans are for next year, but we do know that we will be Photo Collective. We'll see what will happen. But this weekend has made us realise how much we love what we do, and bringing all of you together, bringing people together is really what it's all about. So,
You're
watch this
amazing.
space.
Yeah, thanks, Harriet. Clap for Harriet.
All right.
And Photo Collective.
Thank you all. Thank you, everyone.